Welcome to our August 4th edition of Monday Night Memories, and we're doing this Rose Bowl retrospective series. And you're hearing it from the horse's mouth and the great players and coaches that were a part of Joe Tiller's Big Ten championship team that made it all the way to Pasadena. And today, Ben Smith. And you talk about guys that made a difference in different ways. Ben was overcoming an injury. He was the holder, but also got a chance to play not only in the secondary for Purdue, but he was a great friend and remains very active in the Purdue community, great friend of Drew Brees. Ben Smith will join us. And again, it takes those kind of guys, Nate, to win football games. And certainly Ben was one of those glue guys.
Yeah, when you think about the camaraderie, when Drew Brees was in town for an AD dinner a few years ago, Alan, Ben Smith was right there at the table with him. Their friendship remains. I think some of the bonds you're talking about and just that group of guys, how they got together on and off the field to build the camaraderie that helped propel them to the Rose Bowl.
Alan Karpick here with Ben Smith, and we're working on this story for the kind of a look back at the 25-year anniversary of Purdue's Rose Bowl run, only the second in school history, and the Boilermakers haven't been back since, and it's not an easy thing for not Purdue or anybody to get to. But Ben, we were talking offline here, a seminal moment in terms of really kind of set the stage for all this 2 years previous when Purdue goes out to USC, plays in the was it Pigskin Classic or Kickoff Classic? I can't remember one of the two.
It may have been both. It may have been the Pigskin
but
Kickoff Classic.
You play that.
It was a Pigskin Classic.
You play that Week 0 game, the only time that Purdue's done that, and you lose, even though it was a competitive game in the 99-degree temperature, the hottest game in the history of Purdue football. But you talk about that being an event, not just that game, but obviously what happened after that game that really set the stage for the run to the Rose Bowl 2 years later.
Yeah, and you hit it around the head. So a lot of times they ask me what I remember about that season, the Rose Bowl season. And, of course, I remember the touchdown the Drew Brees to Seth Morales in the IU game where everybody rushed the field and the roses. So that's kind of the ones that everybody brings up and that I remember a lot about. But the thing that really resonates with me was 2 years previous in that Pigskin Classic kickoff game, whatever it was, versus USC. And just the intense heat of it. And, we were talking offline about it, but, Coach Tiller had a very strict rules about what our equipment was, right? And really the one thing that triggered us as a team was the socks that we were forced to wear, which were crew length, right? Which come right up underneath your calf, and that's it. So you can't really roll them down. You can't pull them up. Guys were trying to pull them up really high. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to wear high socks. And so the previous season we had complained about it. And I'll get to the good part of the story here, but this is just, something that reminds me of Coach Tiller.
Yeah.
So, the seniors went to Coach Tiller and said, hey, can we wear high socks next season, right? And so, Coach Tiller thought about it. He said, okay, this is on you guys. So we go down to USC. You said it was 99 degrees, but I remember seeing pictures of it being 115.
Oh, yeah, no, the field temperature is 115, like you
115,
said.
118. Band members are fainting. Fans are fainting, right? So it was a hot day. This was, the end of, the very first game of the year. So this is
August 31st, I believe, was the date. So, yeah.
Yeah. This is August heat in Southern California. So it was hot, right? We had the misters out and everything like that. But anyways, long story short, we got to wear the long socks, right? And then, we lost the game. So then the first thing out of Coach Tiller's mouth after the game was, you sons of guns wanted to wear these long socks, so you wore these socks, and this is the reason why we lost, right? And of course, he laid into it, said, I promise you this, we will never wear those socks again. So I'm pretty sure if you go back through records in my 5 years there, you'll never see us wearing socks past our calves ever. Now, maybe after I was done playing, the guys talked me into it, but that was the only game ever. And so that was a long story, but I think that just really tells the story about Coach Tiller, and what I remember. But the point of the story was after the game, we got our butts chewed, right? And everybody's saying, okay, we got the next week off. It's a bye week, so we're going to fly home tonight. We're going to have the hardest week of practice we've ever had. He's going to be mad, but he stood up and said, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. Completely out of the norm. Never, ever before and never, ever after did he let us have, I shouldn't say let, but no fun events outside of football. He said, guys, we're going to spend the night. I got a surprise for you. One of those surprises is we're going to Universal Studios. Okay, so went to Universal Studio. What I enjoyed about it was, one, the camaraderie with the teammates, but also we all got to see a different side of Coach Toe that we never ever saw, and that was all. He was having fun with us. He was riding rides with us. He was patting us on the back, high fiving us. And just wasn't our coach at that moment. He was, obviously he was authority figure, but he was almost just one of the guys, right? And nobody ever saw that side of him. And I think that, talking to Coach Taylor later on after I was done playing, that's the one thing he says, guys, I wish I would have done more stuff like that. I wish I would have told you I loved you more often. Yeah. But I think that was his coaching style. And that's probably why he was successful, because everybody knew where he stayed. Yeah. All right, so I'm getting long with it, but I'll get to the point. So then we have fun at Universal Studios, and this is what I remember kind of kicking off the whole Rose Bowl run. Now, we all got on the bus, right? We said, okay, one more surprise for you guys. So we take this long drive, winding roads, and then all of a sudden we come up and we see the Rose Bowl, right? So we're in LA, right? The Rose Bowl is obviously in LA. We pull up and we see the Rose Bowl. We see the big marquee, the big neon lights with the rose, and the bus just went crazy, right? Jumping up, hooting and hollering, right? Because we talked about earlier, the Big Ten today is the Big Ten, but back then, before the tournament, the
college football playoff,
There you go, the college football playoff. That was the ultimate goal. Right behind being national champion, right? If you ask a lot of guys, they would rather play in the Rose Bowl than play for a national championship, because you represent your conference in the granddaddy of them all. Right, so we pulled, everybody's going crazy, hooting and hollering, right? And Coach Taylor calms everybody down and goes, okay, guys, I want you to take an hour. I want you to walk the entire stadium. I want you to walk the grandstand, immaculate grandstand, right? Humongous stadium, right? I want you to walk the grass. I want you guys to envision yourself making a catch here. I want you guys to imagine yourself running onto this field, because you know what? I promise you, before you're done playing here, we are going to play in the Rose Bowl. Right, and that was 25 years, 30 years. I think it was 30 years. So it was 1997, 1967 was the first Rose Bowl, correct?
Yeah. So right. It was 31, 32 years after that. That's right. Yeah. When you guys went in 98. Yeah.
Yep. And so you're like, okay, that's great. He goes, no, I want you guys. We are going to do this, right? So we all did it. We took pictures with our buddies. We walked the grandstand. We walked up and down. We took a tour of the press box. And it was something that, and I totally believe in this, right, is that you envision yourself doing something like that, one day you will do it, right? We had been at the bottom of the conference had a couple good years between 67 and that year, but not a lot. And so that was something that Coach Tiller brought to the table. It was that mental aspect of football and envisioning yourself. And I truly believe that was a big part of why we made the Rose Bowl in 2001.
Talk about and it's a great story. And talking about the beginning with the end in mind, which is certainly something that Joe Tiller did, and you guys had that right type of group. You also had obviously your close friends in that first class. Of course, you came in with Jim Mitchell, yourself, and a guy named Drew Brees at quarterbacks. I still remember our cover of Gold and Black, and all you guys pictured on the cover. Just in terms of that season and leading into the 2000 season, because the 99 season, you guys had got off to a good start, got off to a 5-0 start and lost at Michigan, and ended up, losing the big lead in the Outback Bowl and finishing it not the way you wanted to. But how did you, from a leadership standpoint, heading into that 2000 season? This was it for Drew Brees, right? This is his senior year. How did you guys view that, looking back at the lens of 25 years later, in terms of what it took to be ready to go to make that one last run for the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, and we knew we had good teams, right? We knew that, and we knew that we could be great. And I think that the thing that made us really good is, one, we had a great head coach in Coach Tiller. But what Coach Tiller did is he surrounded himself with really, really good assistant coaches. And I think if you look at his tree, from the Greg Olson to the Jim Chaneys to the Brock Spacks, those guys have gone to have a lot of success. The other thing was that he brought a new style of football to the Big Ten, right? With the basketball on grass, or football on grass, excuse me, or whatever. I can't remember now. But
basketball on grass is what.
Basketball on grass, right? So he brought that, and then the one thing that will really take you over the top is having a really, really good quarterback. Right, so we knew that we had a really, really good quarterback, and he was a really, really good leader, like you talked about, right? So when you have a good coach and a good leader running the team, that instills kind of the same presence that the head coach has, you can go a long way. And so we knew that we had a really, really good team going into that, that Drew senior year, and going back to the Rose Bowl. That's the reason why Drew came back. I don't know if he would have been drafted as high as he would, but I know he would have been picked up pretty early, had a great season. But that was the number one reason, why he came back, because he wanted to play in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, and I remember that press conference that summer, and that wasn't an absolute foregone conclusion that he was coming back. I mean, and I remember the press conference down in the bowels of Mackey Arena when he decided to do so. All right, you start that year with easy wins over Central Michigan and Kent State, as I recall. And then, heading into it was Notre Dame was week 3 in a game that, Gary Godsey has the greatest game of his career as the tight end that was the quarterback for Notre Dame. You had that game in hand. You scored the touchdown with 2 to 3 minutes to go in the game, and you can't stop him down the stretch. Just that memories from that start of that season and what you take from that 25 years later.
Well, I think our expectations, right, were that, coming off those 3 seasons that, leading up to that, is that we're a good team, right? And we've had some adversity and we've been knocked down. My freshman year when we lost to Toledo, right? It was like, including myself, was like, why did I come to Purdue for? We can't even beat Toledo, right? I'm thinking, did I make the right choice, right? And then going back to Coach Tiller, he put "we believe" magnets on everybody's locker, right? And that was his message for the week: is we believe, right? So I think when you have a loss like that, being 2-0, setting yourself up, for a successful season, have a heartbreaking loss like that, it can go one of 2 ways, right? It can be like, all right, here we go, same old Purdue, whatever. Or you can say, okay, guys, let's take this loss, right? It's not a conference loss, right? It doesn't affect our number 1 or 1A goal of going to the Rose Bowl, and let's take this and get some momentum going into it. So, we cried for, 2 hours, got on the bus, drove back home, or I think it was a bus. And then, we were ready to go on Sunday. And that's where Coach Taylor did a really good job of saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, feel sorry for yourself for a little bit, but we got to get going. So we got back Sunday, practiced, and we were ready to go again that weekend.
Yeah. And media tends to pay more attention to this stuff. And I do remember that game and Jim Chaney, who was never short of being criticized because he was the OC, though he was terrific at what he did. He only threw the ball 22 times against Notre Dame. You come out against Minnesota, homecoming the following week against a Minnesota team that you guys had put a lot of points up against in your first 3 years, certainly in at Purdue. But what do you recall from that? Anything in particular in terms of that? And maybe as players, and today, luckily, in a lot of ways, you guys didn't have to deal with social media, and to some extent, you had to deal with email. I know Travis had to deal with that in the Michigan game a couple weeks later. But talk about that. Any memories that you recall from that, and getting yourself righted the following week at homecoming against Minnesota.
So we lost Notre Dame, and then we play Minnesota next week. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, at home. Yep.
I don't remember much about that.
Yeah, there you go. All right, but a game you'd probably do remember, Penn State. The following week, the roller coaster goes back down.
Yep.
And I talked to Scott Downing earlier, and of course he was the special teams coach.
Yeah.
He said, "Boy, that was a hard thing because you couldn't get a couple punts off." And he credited you in that attention to detail, and not as being one of the best holders of all time. But I don't know what your role were. You on the field at special teams and at Penn State during those punts when you couldn't get them off, and another tough loss at Happy Valley before things got righted.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you remember, but so I came in as a quarterback and I moved to safety.
Yeah.
Right. And then I started a couple of games my sophomore season at safety, and I tore my ACL the 4th game of the year. right? Came back and then blew up my
ankle.
You
redshirted then, right? Then, so you did that give you a red shirt, or did you have to use a?
No.
Okay, you were too far.
Too many games in the season. Too many games. So I redshirted my freshman year when I played quarterback.
Yeah.
And so then I came back, right, and then I blew up my ankle, and that was the year that Stu was a freshman, and he was a pretty good player, right? And so I couldn't run like I used to be able to, so I played a lot of special teams. And so, yes, I was on the field for a lot of those block punts. I was on the field, holding for Travis a lot, right? So, and I took pride in it, right? And so to have the 2 block punts, right, to have a game that we thought we had in control, and at the end of the day, you never want to say this, but we probably should have won if we could have won all 3. If we could have won the third, probably one of the most important things, offense, defense, and special teams. If we could have won the special teams war, we should have had that game under control. And so it was very, very heartbreaking. It was very, very difficult. It was just one of those things. I'm not sure it was LeVar. I don't think LeVar was playing still, was he?
No, LeVar was in '99. Courtney Brown and LeVar Arrington were that you played them, and that was a tough game too. Obviously, a game where you were down to the goal line, had 4 chances inside the 10, and they held you off. But that game was in West Lafayette. Arrington and Courtney Brown were gone. In 2000. Yeah. Yep.
And so I was the left wing or the left. I don't know. I was on the line, but I was left. And so and those guys were mean. I mean, they would keep their starting defense in there, and they would rush, and I'd be trying to block their starting defensive end, right? So I remember that game very, very vividly. In fact, I watched it on ESPN Classic probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's funny because Drew's dad's on there, Chip, talking, trying to be, saying, hey, he didn't say it, but he could tell that, hey, offense is doing their part, defense is doing pretty good, and we can't even block, So I remember it very vividly. And it's another heartbreaking loss.
Yeah. Then you get down to you come back home on a very seasonably cool game against Michigan, of course, and you're down 28-10. As I told Scott Downing earlier, it was the greatest comeback in the history of Purdue football. It still is. No Purdue team has ever come from 18 points behind to win. If you can believe that, that's one of the things that people, at least that we can find. We've done the research. But what your takeaway again? You're a leadership guy, and having to figure that out. You're down 18. The story is Joe Tiller kind of did it again in the locker room, telling you guys, hey, I think he kicked a field goal or something late in the half, and got things a little bit headed in the right direction. Though people question why he kicked the field goal, because you're down 21 points. Why are you doing that? What do you remember from that, and maybe how that set the tone for that magical run in the month of October?
Well, I think it goes back to Coach Tiller halftime, right? Of course, he was upset, he was pissed, right? And but once again, he came back and said, hey, you know what? You got to believe in yourselves, right? We got to come out here. We got to execute, right? There's some things that didn't go our way, right, in the first half, right? You got to trust the process, right? And go out there and execute, right? And going back to his whole mindset, even go back to that Toledo stage, right? When we got lost in Toledo, his big thing was trust the process. Trust the process, right? Is that, hey, we put a plan in place, right? This is the first week of running it. Just trust the process, right? So, of course, he brings it back to, to that game, right? Is that, hey, we've been successful doing this for a long time, right? Things didn't go our way, right? And, of course, he wasn't this nice about it, right? I mean, there were some choice words.
I'm sure not, yeah.
And you know what? We believe that we come out there. And I think it goes back to leadership, right? Is that if you have a guy that's leading your team that is confident, and that's the reason why he's so successful, Drew, in the NFL, is that he never thought he was out of the game. So when you have your leader that believes that, guys like Chuck Jacoby, guys like Aiken that believe that, and it goes down, right? You always have a chance to win, right? So of course things had to go our way in the second half, right? We had to execute, and that's what we came out and did.
I got to ask you, so you're holding for Travis, and Travis had been under some fire in that world. It was, as I recall, via email. We've got some nasty emails from fans, and Travis is about as competitive a guy as you're ever going to find anyway. And you, with about 2.5 minutes ago, you come all the way back against Michigan, and Travis lines up and misses a makeable field goal.
Yep.
And then you get another chance. Talk about as the holder, and do you instill confidence in a guy? Now, Travis would have been a junior that year, right?
Yep.
So he was old enough to know. But what was that dynamic? Anything that you take, any moment that was kind of behind the scenes, that as the famous mulligan that he makes and that field goal at the near the buzzer in the last minute to beat Michigan that you recall?
Yeah, I'm a guy that truly believes in positive reinforcement, right? Is that he knows that he missed it, right? He doesn't need anybody to tell him that he missed it, right? And I'm not going to coach him because I don't know how to kick, right? And so and there's also a fine line, right? And that you don't need to go up and say, "Hey, you're okay," because they know that that they know what they did, right? So we'd have our little quick conversation and say, and I tell him, "Hey, you know what? You're gonna get one more shot at this, right? Drew's gonna take us down the field. We're gonna get one more shot at it, so be ready." And I joke, but I'm somewhat serious, is that I would never want to be kicker because of all the stress on it. But being the holder, right? People don't give holders enough credit.
Yeah.
Because, right?
There's anxiety there.
There's anxiety there, right? And the fact that nobody has any idea who this guy is, the holder, right? And the only time they know is that if you drop it, you muff it, you don't spin it the right way, right? It's a no-win situation being the holder. So for all the holders out there, you know what, I feel for you, because it's a no-win situation. The guy kicks it through, you're great. If he misses it, and they go back instant replay and analyze everything about the kick and the hold. So the second most stressful, and then the long snapper, right? They got easy because they practice it every day. But I didn't practice holding every day. But I do remember it very, very vividly, right? There was 2.5 minutes to go. All right. And then, I believe we had another shot at it. So we had another shot at it. And it wasn't, it was not a chip shot. I know that, but I don't think it was.
No, it was about 33 yards, but he missed one from about that length, as they call. And why Lloyd Carr chose to pass on first down, or whatever. He kind of gave you guys a chance from a timing standpoint, gave you a little bit window of opportunity with Drew Henson at quarterback. But anyway, so as you're lining up, I mean, the one he made, he didn't make it by a ton. He made it by enough. But what was your angle? Your angle is you're on your knees, so to speak. But did you know what do you recall all these years later from when that ball went through the uprights and you knew it was good?
So I was so excited, and I knew there was a little bit. Was there time left on the clock? I knew that.
There was. I think it's like 7 or 8 seconds, and you still had to kick off. Yep.
Yeah, and so I went to go grab Travis and celebrate and lift him up, and all of a sudden he goes and he sprints off in a different direction. Right? Yes, he did. And I'm like, "No, Travis, don't." But at that point, it was a lost cause. And so I remember trying to grab him from back and lift him up and celebrate. And he already done his thing, right? So he was giving the fans a salute, and I do remember that. I'm thinking, okay, all right, now we have 7 or 8 seconds. Let's kick this ball off. Let's get him down, and let's beat one of the top teams in the Big Ten. Yeah,
and it's funny because the picture, our cover of Gold and Black, is of Travis, which I'm sure you're the one that's lifting him up, because it's Travis before he did his salute, but being lifted up right after the made kick. All right, special teams also a huge part of the win. You beat a team that ended up winning a share of the Big Ten title. Northwestern beat them handily in Evanston, a very good Northwestern team, a team that took you to the mat a year before as well. But the recollections of that. The block kick, and I don't know if you would have been on the field when Craig Terrell makes the block and Woodyer runs it all the way back. But what do you remember from that trip to Madison?
I was not on the field, but I do remember thinking that it was a long field goal, and my thoughts were he'll miss it, right? And then we got to go out and get one first down and kick a field goal to win the game. So I was preparing myself to go back out there and do the holder. I remember it very clearly that I was like, okay, this is another big play that I got to get myself ready for, because, it was a long field goal. So if he misses it, more than likely we're going to be kicking a field goal. And so all I remember is Terrell breaking through, blocking it, and then Woodard, I'm just thinking, just go, just run. So I don't have to worry about holding holding for the field goal and just run. So that was my memories from that. I remember it was a great game. I mean, it was just battle.
Oh yeah, Aiken makes the big sack in overtime that makes that a long field goal. That was a huge play.
And this is great talking with you about this because it's bringing back memories and refreshing stuff. And
well, it's funny. I can remember that stuff. I'm not sure I can remember what I had to eat 2 hours ago, but there's a lot of fun in that sound and that thud sound. People talk about that they were on the sidelines, and Craig Terrell gets up a redshirt freshman and blocks it, and off to the races goes Ashani Woodyard, and that celebration. Scott Downing said he was all his worry was, as Woodyard was running down the field, is trying to keep you guys back from all running on the field, because it was pretty clear once he picked the ball up, he was going. I mean, but he still had to get there. Typical coach not wanting to have a penalty or anything to ruin that from the end. All right.
Well, and here's the thing too, that that going back to, there's never one part of the team that loses a game or one person that loses a game. But you look back on it, right, with the Penn State game, right? You could blame the special team, right? But you could also give credit to the special team for both the Michigan win and for the Wisconsin game, a big part of it. So that's why you never count anybody out, right? And that's why football is the greatest sport of all, team sport, because it takes 3 different parts. It takes 11 guys, but you can't ever get down on one side of the ball, because they may win the game for you the next time.
All right, then as the story goes, Ohio State, you have that game, and you never have the game totally in hand typically against Ohio State, but you're up 20-10. They return I think it was Nate Clements returns a punt for a touchdown, and Drew, your close friend, throws a pick late in that game, his 4th interception of the game, though he threw for 500 yards, so it was like he had a bad but you're down, and of course it's the Warren Moore telling him that if it ain't broke, or if it's broke, fix it, so to speak. And I love that.
He said, know what your mama told you, right? If you break it, you fix it. I go out there and fix it, and that's 100% true story. I mean, I was right there when it happened, and and that's another. It's
funny. As successful as a Ben Smith has been and a Drew Brees has been, Warren Ike Moore has done great things in the world of pharmacy and business, and an amazing guy in his own right. But all right, so what do everybody has where they were standing. You're down, and you're at the 36 yard line. Is it? You got a good long Klopp had a good long kickoff return, which helped. But you still don't have a lot of time. Where were you standing, and what were you when that pass? What was the 4th on his progression to Seth Morales? What do you recall from that?
I remember I was standing about 40-yard line, right towards where the touchdown went. So in the defensive 40-yard line. I mean, I remember thinking, as he's running on the field, thinking, okay, we're never out of this game, right?
Yeah.
And my dad was a coach, right? And he's always, instilled that in me, is you're never done, right? The clock, turns 0. And then especially with a guy like Drew Brees, you're never out of the game. I think that he definitely showcased that, even further down his career. And that guy, nothing makes him nervous. Nothing makes the guy nervous. So he's just totally built different than anybody. So anytime you have a guy like that who's calm, under control, Coach Greg Olson did a great job when I was a quarterback, saying, hey, never get too high, never get too low. Right? You throw a big touchdown, just act like it's something that you do all the time. Right? If you throw an interception, I don't want to see you, being a baby about it. Right? So he instilled that, and the quarterbacks, and Coach Drew took it. But I remember it was the play took forever. The ball hung in the air, or at least seemed like it hung in the air forever. And, to Seth's credit, that's not an easy catch, right? Even though Drew put it right where it needed to be, that's one of those things that you're running, your eyes are bouncing up and down, and, it's such a big play. Before just to land in his arms and for him to be able just to, walk in the end zone is just something that a season like, it's one of those things that this season was meant to be with plays like that. right? It's it's one of those things, kind of like the Pacers run. I wish they would have won it all this year, but one of those things is like, you know what, this is a destiny. This is a team that's destined to be successful and to do big things. But and then it was crazy. I mean, it was Coach Downey talking about the the sideline on that kick where we're trying to keep people off the field. We're trying to say, hey, we still got time left to go. Hey, we gotta this
you had to stop them. Yeah.
How much time was left?
Maybe a minute and a half.
So I think I was thinking we left them too much time, Drew. Why did you have to do
which is a Purdue trait over the years, as we know.
Yeah. And then what you do is you put the pressure on the defense, and we stepped up and we shut them down, and the rest is history.
Yeah. We go.
When was Michigan State? Was Michigan State before Ohio State, or was it after?
No, and that's what I was going to ask you about next, and that is the whole, again, the roller coaster of that season, and you go to Michigan State, and you think about it, you guys. I think Scott Downing had talked about the fact that you did not play Illinois and Iowa, two teams that were down that year, but you did have to play, all the powers of the Big Ten, so to speak, at that time. Michigan, and yet teams that finished at the very bottom of the league, you lost to Penn State, Michigan State. Michigan State kind of grinded it out. Was it Tico Duckett had a big day, just kind of ran the football constantly. Tico or TJ? I can't remember, but TJ. And again, and you get a little bit of luck because I think it was a huge win that Iowa turns out beating Northwestern that weekend. But what did you take from that? Because it didn't go as well at Michigan State as you would have liked. And after that huge win and a bye week, I believe it was, what did you take from that?
Well, that's interesting. And this is what I remember about it. It was a bye week. And so I remember hanging out with Jason and Drew, right?
Yeah.
And we were watching Northwestern play somebody. They might have been Iowa. And we were
it was the Iowa. I think it was. That's right.
And we were arguing back and forth on who we wanted to win the game. Because if Northwestern wins, this happens. If Iowa wins, this happens. And I said, I want Iowa to win because I think Northwestern, I remember rooting against Northwestern, and they were rooting for Northwestern because of the way it might have played out. Because it's such a weird season, right? I mean, the Big Ten was just up in arms. So, anyways, Northwestern loses, right, on that bye week. So, I thought, okay, who knows, right? I mean, but at the end, that's how it had to play out in order for us to have to share the Big Ten title. Since Northwestern won previous, right? We hadn't won, we got the title.
They would have won it outright.
Okay, all right. Yep. All right, so then the Michigan State game, I don't know where the letdown came from. I really don't. I don't know if it was the fact that they weren't, one of the top teams in the Big Ten. I remember that Drew didn't have his best game, I don't think, that game. I just think that it was just maybe a letdown from the Ohio State high and the offense, right? And they beat us. I mean, what was the final score of that game, Or was it
30 to 10.
Right? Or was it
30 to 10.
Yeah.
Yep. And
so that was a huge letdown.
But you look at that and you end up and you bounce back from that one. And the fact that you end up tying, Northwestern and Michigan in the Big Ten, and the fact that Iowa, Northwestern loses that game to the week before your bye week. They beat Michigan in a huge win for really the way things played out. They beat Michigan 54-51, and then against Iowa they lose. Yeah,
go ahead, Alan. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that may have been where you guys were debating who you wanted to win, Northwestern or Michigan, and of course Northwestern beats them. Like I said, 54. Can you imagine a Michigan team? I think it was the first time Michigan had ever given up 50 points in a game, and they lose that one. But you come back and you got to get ready, and it's still the road is paved with that Iowa win over Northwestern. You're going to have a chance to get in a three-way tie, but have the tiebreakers because you'd beaten Northwestern, you'd beaten Michigan. And what were your thoughts heading into the Indiana game? And obviously it's the rival, but so much more on the line.
Well, that's one of those things, right, is that, on paper, we were the better team, right?
Yeah.
Rivalry week, right, is that is scary, right? I thought Purdue had a chance this year to beat IU. I was wrong on that rivalry.
Yeah.
It plays out for us to be able to destroy their season, right? So I think, okay, Purdue's going to come out, we're going to play well. We did. But my point is that you never know what's going to happen. And what they had that no other team in the nation had was Antoine, Randall, right?
Yeah.
Probably one of the best athletes of all time to play in the Big Ten football, right?
Yeah.
And, he understands the rivalry. He's about the same age as us, right? So he understands the Drew Brees versus him, kind of comparison. So going in that week, we had the confidence, but they had that wild card factor. Whenever you have a player like that, that's a huge wild card factor. If he goes off, if we can't tackle him, if he breaks a long run, what happens, right? So our job, our goal was to contain him, Randall L, which we did a pretty good job of. But at the end of the day, you're right. You never know what's going to happen in a game like that. They would love anything to spoil, our Rose Bowl.
Montrell Lowe runs the ball 38 times. Jim Chaney is, I don't know if it's urban legend, I think called the same play 27 consecutive plays from scrimmage. I don't know what it was. In layman's terms, it was an off tackle to Montrell.
Off tackle.
And they just couldn't stop it. And Montrell runs for over. I think
it was to the left majority of the time. Who's that?
Was it? Yeah. Right? And they just and he took care of business. Your memories of standing on that field and roses being passed out again. It's November, so it was a cold November night. I don't know that anybody cared about that.
Yeah.
Though you probably were having to wear shirt sleeves. I don't know.
We did. We got to wear sleeves that game. I remember that.
Oh, okay, you did. All right. So that part was good, but again, through the lens of a quarter century, what are your takeaways or any?
Well, here's the cool thing about it, right, is that I have a photo, right, that's in my bedroom, right, and so it's my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, Tara, right, she's sitting right here right now, but to be able, she's a cheerleader, but to be able to find her and take a picture like that, right, when my ultimate goal growing up was to play in the Rose Bowl. My dad was from Chicago, right? So, I was a big Illinois fan. I was a big Michigan fan. My uncle played at Wisconsin, played halfback on their Rose Bowl team, right? So to be able to share that moment with my wife, right, was a really cool experience, as well as my other teammates, right? So, of course, you couldn't find anybody, right, because the field was just crazy. We all went to the south end zone, right, the open end zone. Right, and we were singing with the band, but I was able to find her and to share that moment with her, which we're still married to this day, right? So it's just a cool college young man experience to be able to kind of wrap all that into one thing, right? And this goal that we had all set forth to or took on 4 years previous. Right, we have a goal board every year, right? With win the Big Ten was the number one. I'm not sure if national championship. Or maybe it wasn't one. But anyways, that was one A goal for any Big Ten team back then was to to win the Big Ten, right? And for us to be able to do that as a team, right? Do it for West Lafayette and Lafayette, all the former Boilermakers. Right, the Leroy Keys, the Bob Greaseys, the Brock Spacks that played. It was just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah. All right, you get to Pasadena and obviously get out there, and it's nice to get out. Not only to be there, but in the middle of the winter, being in Southern California. As I think I told Scott Downing, one of my favorite pictures is one of my favorite Tom Campbell images is that he shot it over he was like standing over the tunnel as you guys came out. It's a great picture of Danny Hope turning around. You can see, you have to look closely, but his tongue is hanging out, looking back at Jim Lathrop saying, my God, that we're here. What do you take?
Yep.
What was your magic moment of that trip? Was it running on that field? What do you recall from that opportunity to play in Pasadena?
Yeah. And what a cool setting, right? It's I think the game's late afternoon, right? So the sun's up or the sun's starting to set, whatever, right? Huge stadium, right? I think everybody remembers the flyovers, right? Which never experienced it. It is so unbelievable, right? And especially being in the uniform. And my goal since I was 5 years old to play in the Rose Bowl, it was just absolutely amazing. see my parents, my dad, all my family and friends, you know, because I think that they were sitting down lower, so you could see those people. You just can't explain it, right? For me, it's especially special because of my love for the Big Ten Conference.
Yeah.
And to represent Purdue, which hadn't been there in a long time. And here's the thing now,
34 years.
I'm thinking about it, right? So you got the Bob Greases, right? And I'm thinking, man, when I went to Purdue, Bob Greasy, he's an old guy, right? He's an old guy, right? So now these young guys that are at Purdue now, it's been about 30 years, so they're looking back on the Drew Brees and the guys that play on that team. Man, those guys are old, man. So it's a hard thing to do, and for us to be able to accomplish it is something that I think Purdue will never forget.
Yeah, you've had a special relationship with Drew Brees all these years and watched his star rise in terms of that. That's nothing like a now would be almost 30-year friendship from when you set foot on campus prior to the 1997 season. But what has that meant? And as it continues to this day, how important that is to him, to you and to him, and what has been that takeaway of that long-term relationship? Yeah,
so our relationship is pretty strong. So Jason Lorzell, myself, and Drew, we've stayed in really close contact with business together now. We've taken a summer trip every year for the last 10 years with our wives. We're getting ready to head out here at the end of July to go to Prague.
Good for you.
Into Europe. We do all these things together. And and I think right? Anybody knows just what a down-to-earth guy that he is, right? Just the best guy in the world. There's no arrogance to him. He's so unassuming. He's so giving. So you don't find many guys like that ever. So he's just one of the best of the best. What I do remember about as I look back on it, right? Is I remember when I was playing defense and I'd have to cover in practice. I'd have to cover Vinny one-on-one, right? Which is almost impossible. Doesn't matter who you get, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember that I would, and probably 4 or 5 times in practice, they would single me up on him because I'm playing safety, right? He's playing slot. I remember that he would give me these jukes, and I would be here and there, and I'd have decent coverage on him, and Drew would just drop it in right here, right? So I thought, hey, that's normal, right? That's he's a good quarterback, right? But never in my greatest imagination would I think he was, an elite quarterback, in my mind, the best of all time. So I go back and say, hey, I didn't do too bad, right? I was all right, right? I got beat every single time, but one, you're facing Vinny, and 2, you got a guy who's an elite quarterback dropping it in. I don't feel quite as bad as I did, back then, saying, hey, why can't I stop this guy? But I don't think he was special. I think everybody knew he was really good, including myself. But I don't think anybody ever imagined that he would go on and do exactly what he did. And in my mind, it is his mental ability, it is his focus, it is his ability to block everything out, and the guy doesn't get nervous. And it's just something. He's the hardest worker I've ever seen. He just loves it. It's just that his physical ability is pretty good, but it's his mental ability, day in and day out, and that drive is what made him an elite player. Best of all time.
A clear first ballot Hall of Famer, which is coming up not all that long from now in the NFL. It has taken an NFL Hall of Fame quarterback to get Purdue to the Rose Bowl both times. You mentioned Bob Greasy and Drew Brees. That's kind of what it takes sometimes to get to that level. Okay, get us caught up on your, as much as you care to share in your family and personal life. You live in Fishers. We talked about your wife, but they're also working at Eli Lilly. But what's up with you these days?
So I've been at Lilly for 21 years. Love the company. It's fantastic. Of course, it's kind of a homegrown industry down here in Indianapolis. So I've been doing that for a while. I have also have some side, Pickler, which is pickleball. So Drew, Jason, and I have a vested interest in Pickler as well as another.
Timing is everything. You got that one right, I think. But yeah.
What's that?
I said timing is everything. You guys hit that on the screws, I think.
Yeah, we did, right? I mean, it's a popular trend. We have another business called Everbowl, which is the acai bowls. We're on Purdue's campus. Another good buddy of ours, Kelly Kitchell, his wife Brooke. Brooke does all the work for us. Kelly just kind of hangs out, eats the Everbowl. But Brooke Kitchell, she does a great job for us. We have that as well as some other ones. And so that's kind of, it's kind of cool because Jason and I used to talk maybe once every 2 weeks or so. Now Jason and I are on the phone every single day, which is really cool, right? Because you don't see many friendships like that past college, you see that communication, but with the business ventures, we have to stay in contact. I'm able to talk to Drew, not every day because he is so busy, but it's brought us closer as well because we have to talk business every now and again. So it's been a really, really great experience for us. I have 3 kids. I have a 15-year-old daughter who goes to Hamilton Southeastern, which is in Fisher, so HSC. I got a almost 13-year-old son, so he'll be a 7th grader. So we're just traveling around playing baseball, playing football, playing basketball, trying to get him the experiences of all sports. And I just want him to, I played 4 sports in high school, so I want him to experience that and be able to choose down the road, which direction you want to go. So he's loving baseball right now. I'm sure when football comes around, football will be his favorite sport. And then I have a 10-year-old daughter who's into gymnastics and cheerleading and all that good stuff. So it's I think everybody knows it's hard to balance. And it's really the practices, finding someone to drop them off, pick them up. So that's what really, really keeps me busy right now.
You guys are going to need that trip away to Prague just to balance the rest of that. Ben, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Always great to catch up, and you can see why you've been successful, and your memories of all has gone on here is very, very important to Purdue success.
Well, and I appreciate you for everything for Purdue and Gold and Black, and especially kickstarting all these memories for me because I had to dust them off. Had to dust them off after 25 years.
Thank you to our guests from the 2000 Rose Bowl team, and of course our sponsor, Chariot Auto Group, Twin City, and Nate Barrett and all the good folks there. We'll have another edition of Monday Night Memories with members of the 2000 Big Ten Championship 2001 Rose Bowl team next Monday, and we'll continue this throughout the summer months and possibly even into the football season. So thanks to all for watching and listening, and have a great rest of your week.